today's lesson is on how do we factor expressions. Factoring expressions is the opposite of the distributive property. So we're going to be going backwards from what we learned today in class. So factoring is the opposite of the distributive property. So use factoring to write an expression for the length and width of a pool if the area is 4x plus 20. Take a second to copy down the question. So when we're factoring, they tell us that the area is 4x plus 20. Formula for the area of a rectangle is length times width. So my area is 4x plus 20. So I need to turn that into two things being multiplied. When we're factoring, we're going to look for the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor we're going to look at first is for the numbers. So my greatest common factor of 4 and 20 is 4. Here I have an x, but there's no x over here, so my greatest common factor is just going to be 4. So since this is the opposite of the distributive property, and we have the 4, and then I'm going to have a set of parentheses. I'm going to divide each term by my greatest common factor, which is 4. 4x divided by 4, I can do 4 divided by 4 first, which just gives me 1, and then the x just comes down. Positive 20 divided by 4 is a positive 5. So this is my expression for the length and the width. Plus 20 is equal to the same thing as 4 parentheses 1x plus 5. So I've turned this expression into two expressions being multiplied. So the 4 can be my length, and the 1x plus 5 could be my length, my width. So this is this one expression turned into two expressions being multiplied. Show two different ways to factor negative 4x minus 28. Take a second to copy down the question. So the first thing I'm going to look for, I'm going to find my GCF. I'm going to look at the 4 and the 28. 4 and 28, the greatest common factor that goes into both of those numbers is 4. Even though there's an x here, there's no x here, so my greatest common factor will just be 4. So the first way I'm going to factor this is using 4 as my greatest common factor. So I'm going to divide each term by 4 and have my GCF outside the parentheses. Negative 4 divided by 4 is a negative 1, and the x just comes down. Negative 28 divided by 4, when I divide those, I get negative 7. So that would be one way for me to factor this expression. The other way that's more useful and what we're going to do more often, negative 4x minus 28. We're going to use the same number, but since my first term is negative, I'm going to make my greatest common factor, or my 4, I am also going to make that negative. So I'm going to divide each term now by negative 4. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1x. And negative 28 divided by negative 4 is a positive 7. So this would be my second factored expression. Now, even though these two answers look different, they are the same thing. We can use the distributive property to check if we have the same answer. So if I distribute this 4, 4 times negative 1x is negative 4x. 4 times negative 7 is negative 28. So I get the same expression from the beginning. Same thing with this one, negative 4, parentheses 1x plus 7. If I distribute the negative 4 now, negative 4 times 1x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times positive 7 is minus 28. So if you notice, each of these expressions are the same thing, and they are both equal to the expression that I got in the beginning. And the last question. Factor the expression 6x minus 18 minus 12y. Take a second to copy down the question. Now, even though there's 3 terms, this is the same process. We're going to determine our greatest common factor. I have to find my greatest common factor of all 3 terms, 6, 18, 12. When finding the greatest common factor, I like to start with the smallest number, so I'm going to start with the 6. My factors of 6 are 6 and 1 and 2 and 3. I'm going to pick the largest number, 6. 6 I know goes into 6, 6 goes into 18, and 6 goes into 12. So my GCF is 6. So I have my expression, 6x minus 18 minus 12y. I'm going to factor out my 6. So I'm going to divide each term by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and then I just bring down the x. Negative 18 divided by 6 is negative 3. Negative 12 divided by 6 is negative 2, and then I just bring down the y. So this would be my factored expression for my original expression.